So it's Wednesday the 10th of July, and I've been speaking about recording this kind of stuff and putting it all out there once and for all, and I'm going to do that. And to be honest, it's 4:15 in the morning, so I'm kind of talking a little bit low. I just want to address something quickly before I start on this. I've been followed around now by Ray Halligan, which would be the brother of ex-minister, ex-mayor John Halligan, and this is an ongoing thing now with Ray Halligan. You can go onto my first TikTok video and you see Ray Halligan and he's trying to threaten a girl regarding the whole group link situation, which is run by his sister Mary Halligan. And anyone who's out in Waterford will know there's decades of stuff kind of that needs to be kind of looked into regarding that place. But Ray Halligan's been getting his actions covered for years. When there's the same Ray Halligan on video, remember, got caught trying to pass a threat through me to a girl regarding the whole kind of children's group link stuff, and Waterford Gardaí failed to deal with him, even arrest him. They failed to take my wife's statement saying that they ran out of time. But this is an ongoing thing with this family. That's an example of what's been going on since the late 80s with this family. And what's really up with Ray Halligan, there's information that had been given to me several years ago about regarding the whole stuff up in children's group link, and I've been speaking about kind of like reading these messages online over the last couple of years, being honest with you, but there's a court case, so I kind of held off. So Ray Halligan now thinks he can act like a thug. Remember, this is the face of the Irish Kidney Association. This is the same Ray Halligan who followed my wife in and out of the hospital when her father was sick, when he was passing away. This is an ongoing thing with this kind of fool. And realistically, if his balls were as big as his mouth, do you know what I mean, he'd do something. But he won't do it. He's just the usual typical coward. But these people get to hide behind the system, the very system that's there, that's supposed to protect the victims that have suffered at the hands of kind of his associates. But this is an ongoing thing, as I said, with Ray Halligan. I can't go to the playground, I can't go to my mother-in-law's, follow me everywhere in his car. Kind of following that tracker, we all know about this tracker on my car. This is kind of a widely spread thing in Waterford. And he gets to hide behind kind of like these twits in Waterford Council. And he gets to hide between Waterford Gardaí and kind of various other groups in Waterford, not excluding the Waterford freewheelers, let's say it like it is like. And his assumption being he can do what he wants and act like a thug. But unfortunately he can do what he wants and act like a thug, because as I said, Waterford Gardaí are for decades covering up for his family. Do you know what I mean? And when it boils down to it, there's no like statements against me or any of my family, do you know what I mean? There's no allegation against me or any of my family. There's no file sent to DPP regarding me or any of my family. But I just wanted to address that without kind of like, without trading insults and kind of all this kind of stuff. That's what's going on. This person now, as I said, harassed my wife, and she kind of dealing with the passing of her father. His brother interfered with my mother's funeral to try and cover the fact he's after passing information back to David Cullinane, Sinn Féin TD, who would be good friends with his brother John Halligan. And you have to question his support to John Halligan throughout the years, and why in fact he's supporting John Halligan throughout the years. Because we're all aware in Waterford the political influence and what it has made kind of like, and how like certain protocol was not followed, let's just put it that way. And how even people, despite knowing what was going on, repeatedly put these people back in the same kind of situations around the same demographic people, so they could continue doing what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about what the people were doing. It's also about the people who knew what they were doing and repeatedly covered for them. And that's just a fact. That can be proven, but they won't let anyone investigate the situation realistically. But as I said, Ray Halligan will get his actions covered again and again and again, just like the rest of them have been for years. But I just wanted to address that before I kind of start talking about this kind of Baha'i stuff. And I'm unsure now. And I'm unsure how long this is going to take me, being honest with you. It's probably going to take me 1 or 2 videos, because it's very kind of, it's quite long and intensive, being honest with you. It's quite emotional, being honest with you, in parts. And there's a lot of stuff there now. My family kind of won't really want me talking about this, being honest with you. Because it's okay for me to suffer this. Because the view is like, because the view will be that I could have left years ago. I could have ran away with my tail between my legs years ago, and I could have left years ago. Realistically, I could have left years ago, but I chose to stay and fight this. And if I do eventually get this into a courtroom one of these days, I'll be fought tooth and nail, to be honest with you. And I hope members of my family are prepared to tell the truth if I do get it into a courtroom. That's all they have to do. They don't have to lie or anything like this. All they have to do is tell the truth. It's not about me being spiteful or being revengeful or anything like this. I'll just explain this from 2013 up to court in 2015, where I implicated all kind of court proceedings against my ex. And I'll explain this bit first, and then I'll move on and I'll explain the court bit, and I'll explain the kind of corruption within Tussle and my own solicitor, well-known solicitor in Waterford, and I will name her and I'll show documentations, and then I'll speak about, and I'll also talk about my ex, and I'll show her actions. I will show documentation to show what I'm saying is actually true, and people can make up their own mind. But this whole Bahoy thing between 2013 and 2015, there was no slander or anything spread about me right up until I left this in August 2014. And this stuff is beyond crazy, and I find it extremely difficult to explain, being honest with you. As you can probably tell by my previous videos, it's very convoluted. It's purposely convoluted to try and hide what went on. And I'm not being emotionally or socially blackmailed by this stuff anymore, because that's essentially what it is. They think they can emotionally and socially blackmail me. Do you know what I mean? And when I wouldn't give in, then they targeted my family. Do you know what I mean? My ex is a very dangerous human being. This is not a normal breakup, or people have messy breakups and they kind of they do when they say X, Y, and Z about it. They do, and they say X, Y, and Z about each other. This is beyond this. This woman is extremely dangerous and narcissistic, and now she's being rewarded by Tussle, because Tussle needs to cover up their actions. And I'm not asking people to just believe me. I'll explain the story, and you have your own kind of critical thinking and your own freedom of mind to believe what I'm saying or disbelieve what I'm saying. But these people now get to hide behind guards, they get to hide behind Waterford Council, who got caught searching my mothers in 2017, and are desperate to hide this fact. And now they've since ran behind Waterford freewheelers. And Waterford freewheelers should have just minded their own business. You know what I mean? They already got lured into this by me ex. This Ambrose out in Tramore. And I don't want to be banging on about the same stuff over and over again, but this is what happened. Do you know what I mean? I'm just waiting to hear this. You'll understand once I kind of get through the whole lot of this. You'll understand how crazy this is, and more importantly how serious it is, and why there's such an importance to have me removed from my community. And as I said, there was no slander or anything said about me right up until I left this thing, being honest with you. My eyes got open. I seen this for all it was. In my opinion, it's a cult, but you can make your own opinions based on kind of my experiences, what I'm going to talk about. And anything I speak about, I can prove. There's lots of stuff I would like to talk about that I can't prove. The likes of me solicitor got corrupt in my case. What she done, she needed the assistance of the other solicitor. I can't prove that regarding the other solicitor, but I can prove it with my own solicitor. But I do hope to bring a case against Waterford Council and Waterford Gardaí for the negligence throughout the years. And there's a lot of stuff I'll have to let go. But I can still put the information out there as a warning to people, so that they don't get mixed up in this kind of stuff. So I think I've kind of said enough once and for all, and I started to explain this stuff because it's in my head bouncing around, being honest with you. And as I said in my last video, I went through kind of documentation there, and I found a lot of stuff I was after kind of suppressing and internalizing, and it's difficult for me to talk about, because what was done at the passing of my father in an effort to try and remove me from my community was absolutely despicable. And you won't ever hear and you won't ever hear anything like this again. Do you know what I mean? And hopefully you never will hear anything like this again, being honest with you. There's nothing to reference this from. And this Dr. Anne Carey, she lured in as many people as possible to put as many people between me and her and my ex, who engaged in what they done in an effort to spread this Bahoy fate through the infrastructure of Ireland. And she has duped the HSE into promoting this stuff. And after I speak about this, I will then speak about kind of me ex and the kind of character of this person and her spiteful nature and what it is she's after been doing to not just me, other people, and why she was so easily manipulated into this and her quest for kind of social validation. I spoke about it in previous videos. She was advised in rehab to not do hair for 2 years because it impacted her relationship with her daughter. When I was with her, she was non-existent as a parent. It's as simple as that. I'm not nitpicking her at. She would drop the kids to school at 8:45 in the morning. She would come back at 9:30 or something that night. The only thing we had in common was taking drugs. We'd go to a hotel, or we'd use one of my apartments, and we'd kind of take drugs when we got a babysitter. That was the only thing we had in common. Do you know what I mean? I realised pretty quickly that I didn't love this person, that I didn't even like this person. And I know that sounds callous and cold-hearted, but I was trying to do right by the kids. I felt I failed regarding my son in the years previous, so I kind of looked at this as a kind of almost a chance to redeem myself. So I done what was right. She was constantly kind of holding the kids over my head, saying she was going to take the kids back to Ballymun. And as I had the kids day in, day out, every day, I was after building a very strong relationship with the kids. So I didn't want this. So basically, I left myself open to be emotionally blackmailed by this woman. And as I said, this woman done this, but she didn't just do that. She has done the most horrendous, despicable acts that no one in Ireland will ever hear of again. So I just needed to kind of say that before I start this kind of stuff. And I'm going to start explaining it now because there's no time like the present. Now we met in rehab and we moved down to Tramore in 2008. And as she started cutting hair again, she was told not to cut hair for 2 years. It affected her kind of psyche. She put too much onus on the social validation that she was receiving. And she was told not to cut hair for 2 years. I was told to kind of not move in the same circles that I was in. And that was it, basically. And she went and she started doing hair. Now I didn't know any difference, so I realised pretty quick when she started doing hair there was no stopping this person. The only thing that mattered to her was cutting hair. Let's just put it that way. Now I could really go into detail on this. But the people pleasing was kind of off the chart. You will never ever hear of anything kind of like this. And if you'd say it to her, she would just say that kind of she wasn't maternal. So that was it. But up to that, there was lots of kind of issues in the relationship, being honest with you. It was a clash of personalities, being honest with you. I felt she should have been there more as a mother. She felt that this is the way they do it in Dublin, that everybody kind of goes out and works and gets somebody else to mind the kids. That wouldn't be my view, being honest with you. I had moved out twice earlier. The first time I moved out, she got the kids to beg me to move back. So I moved back after 2 or 3 weeks, get back to the apartment. Then the second time I moved out, and that was on the condition that she could go around telling all her friends and everyone out in Tramore that she was the one who chose to break up. Because she was so concerned how she was going to be viewed socially. So I agreed to that. But what happened then is I called to the house one day and she had a stranger minding the kids, if I'm being honest with you. And she was minding the kids for a haircut or a hairstyle, whatever way you want to call it. So I ended up moving back. The kids were asking me to move back, so I ended up moving back, and I think I was only gone 3 or 4 weeks that time again, and I moved back. But the apartment I had, it was actually set up by Catherine O'Brien, and this woman had set me up in the apartment. Now I'm going to come back to this woman later on in the story. Because the apartment she got, I ended up having to move out it because of the neighbour, Tony Kelly was his name. I got the apartment on the condition that I'd only have the kids on the weekend. And he made a complaint basically saying that I had the kids every night and he couldn't sleep with the noise of the kids and all this kind of stuff. So I ended up having to move to a bigger apartment. And I'll speak about all this kind of further on down the road, because this person then who I had issues with Waterford City Council, he was put in living beside me mother after 2 workers got caught searching me mother's. Waterford Council engaged in kind of harassing me mother to try and cover this up, and they placed this person besides me mother in an effort to kind of harass me mother. And as soon as he was in there, he started harassing me mother over a long period of time. But I'll speak about this later on. But the second time we got back together, it was on the condition that I go and do stuff, being honest with you, because I always felt I wanted to do more with my life, that I wasn't happy with just kind of bobbing along through life. So that's kind of something, the silver lining and all this kind of stuff. I now know kind of my purpose in life. But I wanted to do kind of psychology and stuff to kind of do something proactive with my life. So I joined up a psychology course in a Tramore WWETV. And in this course, the tutor, Pat Carey, He actually taught me when I was 16 in a place called Utrecht. He was my woodwork teacher down in Utrecht. And this was his first time ever teaching kind of psychology. He was originally a woodwork teacher, as I explained, and I was asking him how he ended up doing this kind of stuff. And he was saying that he wanted to help spread the word with his wife of this Baohui. And I didn't know what this Baohui was, so I left it go over my head, being honest with you. And he was asking me how I ended up in Tranmore, and I was saying that I was after being in rehab, and I met this woman from Ballymun, and kind of were living in Tranmore. And as the weeks kind of passed by, I was explaining to him this woman's quest for social validation has essentially killed the relationship, and I was only with her to keep the kids in Tranmore because I love the kids. And he was basically sieving information out of me, where she was working, what parts of Tranmore she was in around. And she was in a woman's group in Tranmore once a week. And a couple of days after this, then his wife turned up, pretending to be hanging flyers outside the woman's group, offering kind of free kids play dates, free relationship advice, and free spiritual nourishment. This is what the flyer was. And she didn't bite the first time, my ex. But this woman turned up again now the second time, at the second meeting, again pretending to be hanging up these flyers, hanging around in the hallway outside. I know now, looking back, that it was all kind of strategically done. But to cut a long story short, my ex signed us up to this thing, ended up talking to this woman, signed us up to this spiritual nourishment, free relationship advice, free kids play dates, and that was it. And if I didn't want to do this, she would just constantly threaten, like, to take the kids back to Ballymun if I didn't do it, being honest with you. So I would just do it just to kind of keep her quiet. And in the psychology course, I heard him like speaking to other people, other students in the class, and he'd be mentioning that he was Baohui and kind of his wife was Baohui, and people should call up to the house sometime and hear what his wife has to say and all this kind of stuff. But he would only say this to certain people within the group. If you're anyway strong-minded, or if he felt you were strong-minded, he wouldn't say it. If you were in pairs, he wouldn't say it. It was always the people when they were kind of looking for assistance with kind of some of the work he was kind of teaching or this kind of stuff. And another time then he told me that, and another time then he told me then he was Baohui again, and kind of, as I said, this was going over my head. I actually thought he said he was bi, as in bisexual, and it went over my head because obviously I had no interest in that. But my ex, now she wasn't my ex at the time. Obviously, she was my partner, and kind of she signed myself and herself up and the two kids up to this, and we went up to the house to try this thing out. That's the only way to explain it. And when we went up, his wife answered the door. We went in, there was 3 or 4 other people there. Her friend was also lured into this, and she was in my psychology course also. And she was lured into this with her kids also, out in Tranmore. And the tutor came out, and I nearly died with the fright. Do you know what I mean? I know now like it was all set up, but at the time I didn't know, so I kind of got a fright. And he introduced kind of his wife, and his wife was subcontracted by Waterford Tussle. Her name was Dr. Anne Carey. And I always thought I knew this woman. The minute I seen her, I was like, I know that woman from somewhere, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But as the weeks passed, then we kind of slowly got more and more lured into this. Now I'd be very quiet. I know I don't come across as quiet in these videos, but I would be very quiet and kind of introverted, being honest with you. And my ex would be the opposite. She loved telling her story of how she'd overcome her addiction and I know what she's after going through up in Dublin and the rehab. Now all of this was all fake. We were actually still consuming drugs secretly that she didn't want to tell these people, which is like fine, that's her own thing. But we were consuming drugs, so I would have to just sit or listen to her spinning her kind of story. And each time she would tell it, it would get bigger and bigger, and kind of she would add legs to it, and she would add legs to it over and over again. The way I looked at it is like it was keeping the kids in Tranmore, and the most important thing for me was kind of keeping the kids in Tranmore. But we slowly, over the course of a couple of weeks, then we ended up kind of being lured into this. And as I said, he was my psychology teacher also. The husband was my psychology teacher. And so I was down studying psychology, and then in the evenings, then this was happening up in the house, up in the tutor's house. Now the students should not be in the tutor's house in the story. That's just code of ethics, code of conduct. But this is what was happening. And the more than my ex was talking about kind of herself, like this woman was lavishing attention on her Dr. Anne Carey. She was a psychologist employed by Tusla, and she was clearly manipulating her. But as a psychologist, she probably felt this woman was easily manipulated, and she was easily manipulated. Even her friend and myself, we would be looking at each other, rolling our eyes, listening to this kind of garbage, being honest with you, and that's exactly what it was. But as time progressed, we are given books to fill in. You get books stage one, stage two, stage three, and as you fill in stage one book, it moves you on to stage two, and it slowly lures you into this religion. I think I done stage one, my ex done stage one, two, three, because she always had to be the centre of attention, the best pupil in the class, and all this kind of stuff. But there's lots of questions in it and topics, and there's lots of stuff regarding kind of the Catholic Church and stuff. And I felt they were almost kind of having a go at the Catholic Church. They promote this kind of religion that they're open to all religions and kind of all this positive stuff. This is all fake. With the further you get into this, it's explained to you that this is fake. This is to deceive people, to get them into the group, and then you can change their mind. This is exactly what they promote. They actually promote deceiving people because it's for the greater good of the religion to get people in, to manipulate them. Because if you have a large crowd of people or a larger group of people, it's easier to manipulate that one person. And you would never be encouraged to bring people in couples. It was always bring people in on their own. My ex had that. My ex had a large hair kind of clientele, and she was constantly encouraged to invite her hair clients up. And one or two of these people, they actually came and they got a bit of sense and they left after one meeting. But yeah, you had to fill out these books, these exercise books, and there was all these kind of questions about kind of what you thought about this and what you thought about this. Now I know in hindsight, looking back, what she was doing, she was actually just profiling us, finding out what way you think, what makes you think, what makes you tick, as they say. This is what she was doing, and my ex, being the and my ex, needing to be the centre of attention, was filling in these books like there's no tomorrow, handing them back. And she was kind of more or less love bombing my ex. If I'm being honest with you, that's the only way to describe it. She was lavishing so much attention on my ex. And my ex loved it. She loves any kind of attention. When she's the centre of attention, she's in her element. I didn't want to be in it. I was at the kind of running the course with this stuff. The kids didn't want to be in it, if I'm being honest with you. The kids are kind of got kind of tired of this. But the kids were playing with my ex's friends, her kids, as I said, were in it also. So the kids were playing with her kids, so they kind of enjoy playing with our kids. Do you understand me? But this is what they do. They use the kids to lure the parents in, and then you can't really take them out because the kids are enjoying playing with their friends. So you're kind of emotionally blackmailed into this stuff. And I remember being in this, and the husband, Pat Carey, and he telling me that his wife, Dr. Anne Carey, is the most devious, manipulating woman that he ever knows. And he was saying this now boasting. He wasn't saying this in a negative way, but he was boasting. And that kind of got me thinking about the real agenda of this crowd, basically, because she was so opinionated. Do you know what I mean? She clearly looked down her nose at working class people, if I'm being honest with you. This is why they don't mix with any working class people. And the further we got into this, then it was explained that it was a religion and they were open to all other kinds of religion, and kind of, as I said, this was all fake. They have their own laws, their own sentences. They are strongly opposed to homosexuality, kind of alcohol. There's just loads of crazy stuff with this. They control all PR about themselves. If you speak badly about this crowd, they will absolutely destroy your life. Scientologists got away with this stuff for years. It was only the internet started exposing what the Scientologists were getting away with. And it's much the same with this Baha'i crowd. They don't want critical thinking. They don't want people thinking for themselves. And that's the way it is. There's a peer structure where you have one person watching the next person and the next person watching the other person. This is the way it is, and you're encouraged to spy on other people within the groups, and it keeps people in check. And the information then has to be passed back to Dr. Anne Carey, who'd be the kind of head kind of psychologist to this kind of stuff. And as I said, she was employed by Waterford Tusla, obviously abusing her position, being honest with you. And I always thought I knew this woman. I couldn't place where I knew her from, but I always thought I knew. And I asked her, "Do I know you?" And she was like, "No, no, we don't know each other," but I could have sworn I knew her. And when you're in this, you're encouraged to get other people to join. It's almost like a pyramid scheme. You're supposed to kind of get people into this. And just before I broke up with my ex, she was on the verge of kind of luring in her niece into this stuff. And I hope that girl seen a bit of sense and kind of got out with this stuff, being honest with you. But my ex tried to push this stuff onto my mother one day, and I wasn't there. I came in at the end of it, and my mother was at more or less telling her about false gods and where to put this book. She was trying to push this book, The New Beginning it's called. It's their version of the Bible. And my mother would have been a practicing Catholic, and she told her where to put the book, being honest with you. And I was called to a meeting, and the meeting was with Pat Carey, the husband of Anne Carey. And he told me that how Anne Carey was from Kerry, and her family doesn't speak to her under the impression that she's involved in a cult. And that it was okay if my family were against this, that these people were going to be my new family, so it was fine. And I just left it go over my head. And I didn't really respond, if I'm being honest with you, because for me it was for the greater good to kind of be there as a parent for the kids. So I just left him say whatever he had to say, being honest with you. But the controlling aspect of this was really kind of after really taking off. I used to play guitar up there. They had a guitar, and I used to play a job with the guitar. And like Dr. Ann Carroll, she would walk into a room, there's no word of it, and she'd click her fingers, and everyone would have to stop talking and kind of playing the guitar and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's how controlling this woman is. And by her own husband's admission, she was the most like manipulating, devious person that he knows. And as I said, she's from Kerry. She's all quick to expose other people's privacy, but she wants to keep her own privacy hidden. Do you know what I mean? And that should be a red flag alone. But yet, she's from Kerry. Her family doesn't speak to her because because they're under the impression that she's involved in a cult. But this woman, Dr. Ann Carey, she started calling down to our house, like morning, noon, and night. Morning, noon, and night, she'd be dropping down literature or kind of some kind of books or something, or just calling for a visit every day. You couldn't get rid of this woman out of the house every single day. She was after getting her hooks in me ex, being honest with you, and she seen the opportunity there. And me ex, then when she would finish her hair, say at 9, half 9 in the night, she would actually go sometimes and call into this woman, and she would come home at half 11 in the night. And she told me then how she was after confiding in this woman aspects about kind of issues she had with her mother. And to be honest with you, from what I've seen with her mother, I don't have any issues with her mother. And I know she'll probably push that I do have issues with her mother. I don't have any fault with her mother. She's a good grandmother. And as I've seen her as a parent to her, she was a good mother. But she had been confiding stuff regarding her mother. And if you go to my ex podcast on the two Norries in 2022, you will see her cutting the back off her parents again. This is an ongoing thing with her, where she has to blame everybody else rather than deal with her own issues. But as a psychologist, manipulating people, this is what this person wanted. So she became kind of a mother figure to her. She would constantly like shower her with attention, lavish. She would constantly like love bomb her and kind of like give her so much attention and praise. And me ex just kind of lapped this stuff up, being honest with you. And as I said, her friend had seen it for what it was. I had seen it for what it was. Do you know what I mean? But it was about kind of being there for the kids, being honest with you. And when you be in this, you have other people, like if I was talking to someone, you have people standing behind you saying, "Oh, you wouldn't mess with Anne, you wouldn't mess with Anne," like trying to instill that she was the kind of leader. Now she was the leader of this kind of stuff, but you had this kind of you had people purposely trying to kind of sway your way of thinking. I know this all sounds crazy. I find it embarrassing even talking about this kind of stuff, but that's what was going on. This woman was so devious, and I was questioning, we've got all these things open to all religions and charity. Why aren't you joined up in any charities? Do you know what I mean? You're not allowed to mix with people outside the Baha'i group. They don't allow you to mix with people. Unless you're allowed to go to work, and that's about it. You have to mix with people then within the Baha'i group. You're not allowed to question the teachings of this. You have to spy on your friends. One of the biggest things in is you're not allowed to question the teachings of this stuff. If you do, you're not a true believer. The way they control all PR was like insane. You can't speak negatively in any way, shape, or form. You will never find anyone that joined this and then left. You'll find people who joined it. You won't find anyone that joined it and left. They destroy people's lives. I found two people. One person was up in Dublin and that person killed himself. Being honest with you, committed suicide, and that would have been about 15, 16 years ago. And I met another person and he was talking to me about it, and kind of he had a panic attack, and kind of he wouldn't talk to me again about it. He just wouldn't talk to me about it, wouldn't mention it again. But he was from Limerick and he had his life destroyed by these people. But because I was so quiet, it was assumed that I was after being kind of more or less kind of brainwashed. And I know brainwash is a strong word, but I was kind of indoctrinated into this kind of religious kind of stuff. But I was only there to make sure that the kids were okay and kind of to be a good parent to the kids, being honest with you. My ex just needed this attention, whether it was up here or whether it was outside or whatever. Like, she always had to be the centre of attention. That's just that character, who she was. And after this video, after I finish explaining this Bahoy stuff, I'll explain kind of the characters. I'll explain the characteristics of my ex, and I'll show you documentations of stuff that she actually done that can be proven. And you can make your own minds up on this woman's spitefulness, that it, and question, like, is this really normal behaviour realistically? And if it's not normal behaviour, why is Tusla knowingly supporting this person when they know she's after doing the unthinkable? And the reason that is because they need to support Dr. Anne Carey. And I'll explain in a while why Tusla is supporting Dr. Anne Carey. I know now this is going on a bit, but I keep going with it. And by the time I get to the end of it, I hope people realise how serious this stuff is. My ex calls herself the master manipulator. That's a nickname she gave to herself. So you could imagine how these two people got on. And as I said, we were still taking drugs. We were still secretly taking drugs, going to hotels every now and again, and kind of had the other apartment that I wanted to give him back. But my ex was portraying this complete fakeness to this group. And she was manipulating them, and they were manipulating her, if I'm being honest with you. Like, and the assumption being that I was after being lured into this. I wasn't. I was just keeping an eye on the kids. And I'm just going to jump through a load of this, being honest with you, because it's going to take forever otherwise. They slowly lured us in more and more into this. And as I said, we had Dr. Anne Carey down the house morning, noon and night. Could not get rid of this person. Once my ex confided in her about issues she had with her mother, it was what she wanted. It was exactly what she wanted. And she kind of hooked this person, like hook, line and sinker, as they say. Then there was a day out announced in Kilkenny College, and this was on the 26th of July 2014. And now remember, I was still studying psychology, taught by her husband in Tramore ETB. So when we went down to the day out, which is what it was supposed of, and I was driven down there by Dr. Anne Carey. And then when we got in there, then what was supposed to be kids' day out really wasn't a kids' day out. It was all this Bahoy stuff. You had lectures in there from people, almost kind of answering questions that you might even have. Before you even asked the questions, they were kind of giving lectures, answering the questions, if that makes sense to you. The kids were supposed to be taken off to make pizza. When they came back and I asked them how was it making pizza, they weren't allowed to make the pizza unless they repeatedly chanted these prayers. So they were basically conditioning the kids. My ex was being introduced as the next big thing. She was loving the attention from all these people. Her friend was there also with her kids. She was just rolling her eyes looking at me. I was looking at her. And I went to go to the shop and they told me that they're after locking us in. And they told me they're after locking the gates. But I wasn't to worry. They were locking thieves out, not locking us in. That's the way they phrased it. But I told them to go get the keys, that I wanted to go to the shop. But this is what they were trying to do. And then they were kind of like, really? And you have a group of people, remember, all looking at you because you're saying the one thing that they don't want you to say. So it's very hard to kind of find a voice. I know you'd be thinking like, well, that won't be me. Because I would have thought that as well, that won't be me. But it's very hard to kind of do this, especially when they're manipulating your kids. And then they announced then that I wasn't really a day out, that by staying there the weekend, because this is in the Kilkenny College and they have dormitories, and by staying there the weekend, it shows your loyalty and a commitment to this religious group. And I was having none of it. I was like, no way, the kids didn't want it, I didn't want it. My ex obviously wanted it. I didn't want the kids being taken away to make pizza, being honest with you, but my ex did. And her friend didn't want it, or her kids. So we eventually left, being honest with you. So we left and we went home. And I was trying to explain to her that this is a cult. All the techniques they were using was clearly a cult. But there was no speaking to this woman. She loved, like, she was lured into this and kind of, she wanted to do this kind of stuff. And like, I had enough of this stuff. And then when I got back, then I said, I'm leaving that. I want the kids taken out of it. And this was in 26th of July, 2014. So I left. And what happened then is they basically cut me out of the kids' lives. They would take the kids off on the weekends, and I wasn't allowed to be there because they don't mix with people who are non-Baha'i. So I wouldn't kind of be invited. I wasn't allowed to be around the kids unless my ex needed a babysitter while she went off doing her hair. That was the only time kind of I could spend with the kids. And then as soon as she'd finish here, Aunt Carrie would be down the house like morning, noon, and night. And this went on for a couple of months. And then my ex converted at this stage. She brought her to some secret place in town. I obviously wanted to learn about it. I obviously wanted to know about this thing. And Aunt Carrie was delighted. She was like the cat who got the cream. I'm not joking. She would boast that it was only a matter of time before kind of I converted. So when she would call to the house, actually, I would actually go upstairs and watch TV in the room. I could not even stand being around this person. And her husband, I remember, and as I said, her husband was teaching the psychology class in Tranmore, and I refused to go back because I couldn't even stand being in the room with this person or have anything to do with any of these people. So I refused to go back, and they offered me to just come down and just sit in the class. There was only two or three classes left, and all the work was after been done in the class. So all I had to do was go down and sit in the class to get the grade, and I refused the grade. I said, no, I don't want it. I'm not going in to sit in that room with him. So I'll give you an idea how much I dislike these people. I did not speak to these people in any way, shape, or form. And this went on then kind of from July 2014 up till around kind of November 2014. And I'd be down in the house. We were living in the house, like we were all still together, despite my ex on podcast saying that we broke up and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's lies. My sister will verify this. My sister came into court when I brought my ex to court to say that no, this is lies, that she used to call to the house and we were very much together and living together. But there was loads of nasty stuff then going on. I started to warn our hair clients about what was truly going on in this kind of cult, is what I deemed it. So and this is the biggest no-no now with this. You don't mention what's been going on in this ever. Like, you don't speak badly in any way, shape, or form. And anyone speaking badly, it's deemed that the person around them that's listening to him, they as a Baha'i should go and inform the others. That whole kind of spying, pecking order. Some of the ex will come back telling them everything, being honest with you. And then one night, then we were going to get intimate, being honest with you. And she stopped and she said that she wasn't allowed to have sex with me anymore. And if I wanted to have sex, that I would have to go and convert to this Baha'i. And I couldn't believe I was listening to this stuff. And it was that night I walked out the door and I told her to go and speak to her family about it, that she needed to speak to her family about this stuff. And I left, basically trying to use sex as a tool to kind of lure you into this. This is stuff that cults does, you know what I mean? And that was around kind of September 2014. And then my father got sick around November 2014. He got gravely ill. And so obviously they brought me back down to the house. So I looked good on them that were being all supportive to me and all this kind of stuff. No, they weren't. They were being kind of really, really horrible, being honest with you. They were playing these weird mind games, trying to kind of mess with me head, because they wanted me out in the community, because I wasn't willing to do this kind of Baha'i stuff. I was given an opportunity for a couple of months where they tried to lure me back in. They first tried to use the kids, cut me out of the kids' lives. If I kind of converted, I'd be allowed to be back around the kids again. Then they tried to use the whole kind of sex aspect. If I wanted to have sex, I had to convert. I wouldn't do that. So then I was deemed a loose kind of cannon, being honest with you, because I was warning people around Tranmore, and it was slowly getting back to me ex, because who I was warning was our hair clients, to stop them from being roped into this kind of stuff. So she was going back telling this and Carrie everything. I find this now difficult to talk about, being honest with you. But towards the end of 2014, they brought me back down to the house to make it look like the whole support kind of couple. Now, my family will verify all this because my sister was called into the house and they were taking turns kind of giving me lifts out to the hospital at the time. And so they'd be calling to the house and they were aware of kind of like how we were all living together in the house and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't tell my family about this Bahoy stuff, being honest with you, because it's kind of embarrassing. You know? And I find this kind of stuff now speaking about because I've internalized this stuff for such a long time. So when my father was sick, we'd be going back and forth to the hospital, kind of like visiting him and stuff. And my ex, being the nasty person that she was, she'd be trying to push this Bahoy stuff on my father when my father was sick in the bed. And I never told my family any of this kind of stuff. Out of kind of embarrassment and out of guilt. And my father kind of just ignored it, being honest with you. And I remember feeling so angry, like, do you know what I mean, at my ex for doing this kind of stuff, because she knew how I felt about this kind of Bahoy stuff. I was really, really against this kind of stuff. And to cut a long story short, my father passed away in January 2015. And my ex purposely never brought the kids to my father's funeral. And my father would have been very close to the kids. And she purposely never brought the kids to my father's funeral. But who did come to the funeral was her friend, who knew my father, who had met my father, and this is the woman that was in the Bahoy with me and in the psychology course. And my ex decided to bring Dr. Anne Carey and Pat Carey to the funeral, trying to mess with me head. And my family didn't know any of these people. And as I said, I didn't speak to these people at this time in any way, shape or form. So she decides to bring these to try and kind of mess with me head. And I remember being so hurt, being honest with you. And I was supposed to read a eulogy at my father's funeral at the graveside, and I couldn't read it. And I feel so guilty that I couldn't read this because people will assume that I kind of broke down because I was missing my father so much, and that is partly true. But the other part of me is I couldn't read it because in the crowd was Dr. Anne Carey, me ex, and Pat Carey, and I felt so guilty to be standing at the graveside and thinking about this stuff while I was burying my father. Do you understand me? But this is what was done. And as I said, as I said previously, I always thought I knew this Dr. Anne Carey and I couldn't put my finger on it. And she was speaking to a person at the funeral, and this person is a family member of mine, and there was a previous case years prior to any of this regarding allegations of sexual inappropriate contact between a daughter employed by Tusla and a minor in my family. And this person was left in the care of the alleged perpetrator, let's just put it that way, for 7 weeks. And the interview of this took place out in Arkeen Hospital. I was asked to sit in as a support witness out in Arkeen Hospital, which I did. And it was James Kennedy, who was a Waterford social worker, drove myself and the minor out to the hospital for this kind of meeting. And at the meeting, I found out then that the dates that this was reported was actually 7 weeks prior. So they had left the minor in the care of this person for 7 weeks. And as I said, the person was the daughter of an employee at Tusla. And I assumed that the woman that was conducting this interview was a female Vanguard based on the kind of the content and the seriousness of what we were speaking about. And the next day I rang up James Kennedy and I wanted to know what was the next approach from kind of the guard. And he informed me that she wasn't a guard, that she was a psychologist employed by Waterford Tusla. And she had decided that this was going to be kept internal, that there was going to be no guards involved, and that the girl who reported what she had seen, they deemed her as troublesome and they moved her. But as I said, the minor was left in the care of these people for 7 weeks. So Tusla could only ever find in the favour of Tusla after they already breached protocol. The correct protocol of this is to remove the minor out of the care while an investigation is going on. That's the correct protocol. They didn't follow protocol. This woman took it upon herself to kind of do it this way. And that woman around this kind of situation, around that whole situation turned out to be Dr. Anne Carey, the same woman who lured us into this religion. And at the funeral then, and at my father's funeral then, she was speaking to the minor that I just spoke about at the funeral, and then I realised who this woman was, and I almost got sick with the shock of it, being honest with you. And I remember her looking over at me. I was looking over the shoulder of someone staring at this and she looked over and she looked me dead in the eye, and she knew I was at the twigging who she was. She went over, whispered something to her husband, and the two of them walked out as fast as they could with their heads down. And I remember then I was absolutely livid. And that evening, and that day, then we went home, myself and my ex, who was my partner at the time, obviously, and the kids. And I told them when we got home that I knew who Dr. Anne Carey was, that I knew everything about her, and I was going to report her for her unethical conduct, and she needed to be reported, both her and her husband. And my ex literally left. She ran out the door straight away, ran up and told this woman that basically I know everything. And she'd gone for about 3 hours up in this woman's house, and she came back down then, and she was singing on the top of her voice and whistling, being in a great mood. And I'd only buried my father, remember, like 3 or 4 hours earlier, and she was there, and she was there being all over the top happy with all this what was going on. And she announced that she was going up to Dublin for the chillax, and she was heading off up to Dublin. And as I said, she was behaving so um she was behaving so like nastily. That's the only way to describe it. Up until that point, Dr. Anne Carey was calling down to the house, and as I said, I wouldn't be around this person. I wasn't speaking to this person. But what they were doing is when I'd walk into a room, they'd walk out of the room. And when I'd walk into the room, they'd walk out of the room. And then they were constantly just whispering to each other about me, overriding me, but far enough away where I couldn't hear. And the kids noticed this. And the eldest kids started laughing one day, and she asked them, "What are you doing?" Do you know what I mean? They thought it was this. She thought it was some kind of a game that they were playing. This is the kind of stuff that was going on, trying to mess with me head. Had me ex at the time constantly trying to tell me to go to your doctor, try and get Valium, go to your doctor. They wanted me to go to the doctor to make it look like there's some kind of mental health issues. We were buying drugs all around this time. We were buying 100 Valium at the time. My ex was getting the tablets. We were buying 100 Valium at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, we had Valium all the time. If we want a tablet, and if I wanted to take Valium, I could have taken Valium. But they wanted me to go into the doctors, so it would be on file that I was after coming looking for Valium, basically. But that was the stuff that was going on. And after she left then to go up to Dublin for her chillax, as I said, this was only a couple of hours after burying my father, and my sister called the next day, and my sister was like, "Where is she?" And I remember I was just so embarrassed. I didn't know what to say, so I told my sister that she had important hair for the wedding in Dublin, and she left. And my sister seen it for what it was. She realised at the time there was something very strange going on, because she kept asking me, like, "What's up, John? What's up? You're very vacant." And and one of the biggest guilts I have is when my father was sick in the bed, he was more concerned about what was wrong with me, because I was vacant again. And I never told my family any of this stuff. But I feel so guilty over this. So she went off up to Dublin and took the kids. And she sent me a text in a couple of days later saying that I should be gone out of the house and all this stuff. But at this time I was actually gone out. I was after getting my stuff, and I was had to come back to the other apartment that I had, been honest with you. And I was up there. And when she came back then, we were trading insults. This went on for a couple of weeks. Text messages of when you break up with someone, it was getting nasty and all this stuff. So in February 2015, I just went into court and I just lodged the paperwork for access, custody and guardianship. And that was the best way to deal with it. And that was the best way then to just deal with this, was to just go into the courthouse and just lodge paperwork and take this through the courts. Because a couple of months prior, she had signed a parenting agreement giving me the kids for 6 days a week. And I had that going into court, and I had clean urines going into court. I came into court with all these clean urines. I'd done a psychiatric evaluation. She didn't come into court with clean urines. There was no fear of that. I remember calling to get me towels one day out of the house, and there was all burnt tinfoil blown out the front door, because she was back chasing heroin, do you know what I mean? But it is what it is, I suppose. But as I said, yeah, I turned up with the clean urines and kind of the parenting agreement and psychiatric evaluation, and all of this is still available. To this day. The paperwork is all still there. So that brought it from 2013 up to 2015, and there was no kind of sexual slander about me or any of this kind of stuff. But the shit had hit the fan once I recognised who Aunt Carrie was and her dealings previously with a family member in a case where I was a witness in. You could imagine the shit had hit the fan. Plus the fact I was going to complain her husband for luring students up to the house to be kind of lured into this religion, being honest with you. So you could imagine how serious this was. And this is where all this kind of really started. And people don't know about this stuff. People are only kind of clinging onto this whole kind of pornographic stuff that's after been spread in 2016. So I leave it there. There's a lot of nasty stuff that was being done, being honest with you, that I kind of skimmed over, that I find difficult to talk about. But there's a lot of stuff regarding the past of my father that I find so kind of like disgusting that I can't even speak about, being honest with you. The stuff that this woman done, the nastiest stuff. Because it was deemed that my father's illness was just looked at an opportunity to make me look mentally unwell and to try and provoke me. So I know this was a long video, and if you're after looking through all of this, and if you're after viewing this, I appreciate it. And in my next video, I'll go from 2015 up to 2016, and I'll just talk about the whole kind of court shenanigans and what my ex was doing in court and how kind of I was arrested and eventually awarded the kids. And the solicitor involved in my case, my own solicitor, got caught kind of corrupting my case, and then they tried to transfer the case behind me back up to Dublin. And there's documents around this as well. I wasn't even in the court. They had a secret meeting in court trying to transfer the case up to Dublin behind me back. And when she got caught, they basically tried to say then that I was aggressive and all this kind of stuff. And her attitude was, well, she didn't get what she wants, so what's your attitude? This is what my solicitor's attitude was. And as we know in my previous videos, she has since deleted all the paperwork around this file in an effort to try and conceal her actions. So I leave it there, and I'll be back kind of with the next part which I have wrote out, and I'll explain this again. And I'll explain the actions of my ex, and I'll give you some kind of idea of the character of this person. And you'll be wondering, like, why is Tusla supporting a person that's after doing all these things? Because that's really what should be addressed. Why is this person being given a platform to basically lie to people and deceive people? And it'll be an eye opener to people, because this woman gives women up and down Ireland a bad name, being honest with you. It's not fair on women up and down Ireland that they get labelled into the same category as this person. This woman has been using her kids, weaponising her kids for years in an effort to try and get what she wants. And she's been pushed on, and she's been egged on to do it by this Dr. Aunt Carrie, who's trying to cover up this whole kind of Baha'i crazy stuff and the fact she was in and around me family. Yeah, so I'll leave it there, and I'll be back in a couple of days, and I'll explain the next part of this. And this stuff, you might think this stuff is kind of somewhat kind of serious. This is absolutely nothing to what was done after this. And a lot of people in Waterford will know what was done. But I'll need to explain the method of what was done and why it was done, and kind of like and how it was done. And I'll name the names and I'll speak about it. I don't have any kind of problem naming the names or speaking about this. I'm not going to be emotionally or socially blackmailed by anyone, being honest with you. And yeah, I'll just put it out there, and people can make up their own minds of whether or not I'm speaking the truth. It's entirely up to yourselves. And I'll show documentation the next time. So, alright, thanks, bye.